which you are not part of. So that is actually our position. And our insistence on having IOs, all of them end a problem. Either they end to mute. High level, actually they are very high level people. Very good computers. Very good internet in the government and the UN offices and those others. Dialogue between network and those others. As it is completely cut off very significant people to climate change are now the most vulnerable even to this now. And many other governments in the global south, we have been really resisting. Only in Nairobi where you can access sufficiently good internet. I stay in the village, and you have to, it's a sacrifice for us. I know those who travel, there are a lot of challenges in Africa. No, I said working for the global south, it is alienating us. We have to ensure that we make decisions, we are part of the decision. Affirming that even in COP26 in the African Union, hosted by UN Economic Commission for Africa, African Development Bank. Yes, my name is Dr. Mithika Mwenda, the Executive Director of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, which is hosting this symposium here. And this is a symposium on climate justice. So it's we are discussing the broader issue of climate crisis. And here we have brought participants from across the world, from more than 50 countries, I suppose. And what we are coming to do here is, it is actually the opening of a 2-week Nairobi Summer School on Climate Justice, which we are trying to advance. The concept of climate justice is, and this is simply to see how we can promote and create awareness and integrate climate change into the academics and into institutions like universities, so that young people can be able to understand. As you know, the climate crisis is a serious challenge for our people, for the survival of humanity. Here we are in Kenya, and Kenya is a signatory to the Paris Agreement, Climate Change Convention, and the impacts of climate change are seen all over. The disappearing rivers, like in our Mount Kenya, which has affected our hydropower generation, the drying of crops, shifting of seasons, and many others. These are very vivid issues. So many people may not understand how we are being affected, and that is the creation, the awareness we want to create among the people, and particularly the young people, because if they understand the challenge, they are going to prepare themselves for the future, because we are told this problem is going to live with us in the foreseeable future. Yeah, the challenge of climate change has been created by industrialized countries due to the amount of production and consumption. And it is actually a problem which was created a long time during the Industrial Revolution. But more importantly is the impact it has on smallholder farmers, the drying of crops. You see what's happening everywhere. And what we are saying now that because they caused the problem, they have the responsibility to rectify it. And the rectification is found in the conventions which they have signed, including the Paris Agreement of 2015, where they committed to support a country like Kenya, which has not created that problem, with the resources like to support our NDCs, that is national determined contributions, to help Kenya build its resilience, to help Kenya adapt to climate change, to help Kenya fund agriculture, to help Kenya fund the water sector, and many other factors, sectors, forestry, which are affected by the climate change. So everything is in that agreement, and the problem is that we signed the agreement, but there is no commitment from the industrialized countries, that is the rich countries, which we are supposed to provide massive resources, like for Kenya, to be able to generate electricity, to be able to do the geothermal, to be able to do the hydro. Those are things which we are suffering from, and we need that support. It is not forthcoming. So why we are doing this is to ensure that we bring these people to the fore, people understand, so we can create a critical mass of communities which are demanding for this support, not only for the national government, which should ask for it at international level, but even for the people themselves. Kenya has done quite massive progress in terms of integrating these international protocols into its laws. For instance, we have the National Climate Action Plan 2018-2023. We have National Green Economy Strategy. We have National Adaptation Strategy. We have the only country in Africa which has a specific climate change law, the Climate Change Act 2016. But we as the civil society have always been concerned. There is one thing having those massive documents, the policies, and implementation. So we are having, so the government itself has to blame in one way or the other, because we develop very good strategies, we develop very good policies, but they just gather dust in our offices, in the Ministry of Environment and others. So that's one where the weakness we have. So we want really, like Climate Change Act to be implemented. Of course, they have been blaming us as the civil society of having gone to court to stop it and what have you, but that has not stopped. They can implement it, they can set up the National Climate Change Council. I know just recently some parliamentarians summoned the Minister for Environment to ask him why it has not been implemented. We are waiting that. But the bottom line here is the commitment. How are we going to do this collectively? Secondly, is even if we are committed as a country, sometimes there are limitations, because some of these agreements are dependent on the resources and the financial support from industrialized countries, those who cause the problem. So Kenya could be actually limited in its implementation. And that's why, as the civil society, we have been pushing the industrialized countries, those who cause the problem, to meet their commitment, for instance, for Kenya to implement its NDCs. It requires billions and trillions of shillings and dollars. But what do we get? We get it through loans, through other concessional loans, and that is not what we are supposed to do. We need this money as grants because we are not the cause of the problem. So it's actually all global geopolitics, but we want to generate a critical mass for us, like what we are doing here, particularly from young people, so that they push the way they are being pushed in other countries, industrialized countries, so that people can understand that there is a problem and we need to address this problem.
I'm Augustin Jamshi, the Chair of Technical and Political Affairs of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. I am based in Cameroon. Yeah, I think this is very important because when we see what is happening in the continent, around the world, and in the continent in particular, there's need to have young people that understand the issues so that they can drive. The youth, the young people are those who will defend and liberate the continent from injustice. And what do we mean when we talk about climate injustice? It is when someone has caused a problem and another person is suffering from that problem, and the person who has caused the problem behaves as if they don't care. And as the executive director said, the problem of climate change has been caused by the mode of production and consumption that industrialized countries since the Green Industrial Revolution have had on the environment. So the impacts of climate change, unfortunately, are not limited in those countries. They are more in developing countries, especially Africa. Africa is a continent with special needs and special circumstances. The last IPCC report that came out confirms that fact, that Africa has the potential of warming more than 1.5 times the global mean temperature, meaning that Africa is at risk more than any other continent. And let's not be confused when we're talking about Africa as a continent. We're not saying African countries alone, but the continent. That's the continent the most hard hit. If you put all the continents of the world, Africa remains the most hard hit. So we need a kind of advocacy coming from young people who understand those issues so that they will not be fooled into sleeping. This is our future, this is the future So they have to know how to fight and defend it. And this must be with knowledge that they have. And we think that the summer school is an opportunity to raise young Africans who can articulate our issues in a way that is understood by others. We're not saying that they should learn the language of others to say their things. They should say it the African way. That's what we have to put on the table. The world must listen to us. The world must, those who have caused the problem must help us in solving the problem. Because I can say we are cleaning the mess of others. At the end of the day, the impacts are felt in this continent more than ever, more than any other continent. So it is very important. I think the African Union is doing great work because, as I said in the hall, Africa negotiates at various levels. The African Group of Negotiators, the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, and then the Conference of Heads of States on Climate Change of Africa, which is a creation of the African Union. African Union has taken climate change very seriously, and they are making the progress in sensitizing and putting it top on the agenda on every meeting. In fact, we are just from Senegal, Dakar, where we had to have the West Central African Regional Strategy for the West and African Central African session on the AU strategy on climate change. The one for East and Southern Africa took place here in Kenya at the beginning of the month. So you can see that they are doing a lot of work. But this is not enough, considering the fact that climate change is impacting our communities in a big way. We would like to see an Africa where the governments are also empathic about the suffering of the masses, those who are on the ground, those who are losing their crops to floods and droughts, those who are losing their animals and livelihoods because of climate change. I think they should do more to sensitize the governments to act more locally. They are trying, all the African countries have taken commitments under the Paris Agreement under what we call the nationally determined contributions. But these nationally determined contributions, some are unconditional, some are conditional. Those that are unconditional are those that our governments will undertake, the actions they will undertake, with or without the support of foreign bodies. But what they take that is conditional is dependent on financial and technical support coming from developed countries, according to Article 9 of the Paris Agreement. So what we're asking here is that let the money come, otherwise they will not be able to do anything, not because of bad will or lack of goodwill, but rather because they don't have the means. The little means that they have, the budgets that they have to solve climate crisis everywhere, loss and damage happening everywhere. So if they are not supported, and it is their right to be supported, to take this action.
Participants from 45 African countries.